This is another state of mind. And if you like what you see, please, 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 please subscribe. Hit the little button right here down in the bottom. So today I have someone who, through my son-in-law, Carlos Avila, I met a friend of his named Ben. Ben is a police officer, and he's a great guy. He's just an honorable guy, you can tell, same as Carlos. And I went to a party was it last weekend? Yeah, I think it was last weekend. And I met Ben's father. Okay, it's cool. Ben's father's there, and his wife, and Ben's mother, and it's all good. But I learned that his father is bipolar and a retired police officer. And that's cool too. I mean, it's incredible. We're brothers, I'm bipolar. But then he told me he didn't get diagnosed till he was 50 years old. And I'm thinking, damn, I want this guy in state of mind. So here he is, Ben Martinez. How are you?
Good, good. Glad to be here.
How you feeling? Good? You're not used to this kind of stuff, are you, or are you?
Oh, no. I always ran away from the mic.
All right. Well, this is an honor for me because usually with celebrities, they do it a lot. Since, I told you before we started that, with celebrities, you get to look them up and you know a lot about them. And I usually have a paper full of notes. I don't have any notes. So I want you to take me through, where are you from?
Coachella Valley, down there.
Oh.
Currently living in Bermuda Dunes, but I was born and raised.
Oh, really? And how was it growing up?
Growing up was basically because of the mountains. I always felt I was like in the fishbowl.
Oh.
And it was very, very different growing up there because my family they worked in the fields, and then my father became a custodian for the school district. But yet, just down the street, you had Indian Wells and Rancho Mirage, and you had all those gated communities. So it was very interesting growing up
Oh,
there.
really? So in the gated communities, they were, these are people with money, obviously, and this and that. You grew up middle class, or?
No, we grew up poor, but my dad worked 3 jobs.
Dang.
On top of 3 jobs, he was also in the National Guard.
Really?
Yes.
He's a great man.
He was a workaholic.
Wow. And your mom?
And my mom, she worked 1 job. She worked at the hospital,
Yeah.
Eisenhower, and she did custodial work there too. And then she raised me.
And you're the only kid?
No, I have a sister. She's 12 years younger than I.
Oh, wow. But, it's amazing how, somebody can work like 3 jobs. I can't imagine.
I can't either.
Right?
I didn't even know when he slept, to be honest.
Right. That takes a certain person to do that. I mean, it's like, I guess he is a workaholic, but he had to take care of his family.
Yes. He strived very hard to provide.
Yeah. And then what about school and how was school for you? Because for me, it was a pain in the ass, but go ahead.
It was terrible. It was very difficult.
But why was it terrible?
Initially, first of all, I was very shy, very quiet, very withdrawn.
I was in the conversation with somebody else on State of Mind where if they only had tests that we could take in school that says, you know what, math and all this stuff may not be good for you. I mean, you got to learn how to read and write and all that stuff. But Maybe you're going to be an actor. Maybe you're going to be a police officer. So why don't we guide you? I don't know why that can't happen. Do you understand that?
You know, it's difficult too, because growing up, you know, I see my wife is currently a teacher. And
Oh,
they
yeah.
have
She's
all these resources, but those resources weren't available to me growing up. I was kind of placed as a person, a low performing,
That's right. And you're not.
and I didn't realize that until I was in high school, that I was like, basically, I was literally, my classroom was at the far end of the campus next to the auto body shop when they had auto body.
Yeah.
And with a bunch of kids at the time that were just had no inclination of being there. And I was like, wait, but I do want to be here. And that's what triggered me to actually start talking to teachers and say, why, you know, where do I need to go?
You said that to the teachers?
Yes, I actually talked to them, and they started to help me out. But I went from basically general, when I entered school, I was basically in high school, it was just general classes. And then when I graduated, thank goodness I had taken some honors and some college prep classes, which, you know.
Wow. Now, you graduated. I don't know if I graduated. I think I did. It's a long story. And then, because this is interesting to me, only because when I graduated, I had no clue where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. What about you?
Graduating, I knew what I wanted to do.
What was it?
I wanted to be in the military.
Woo!
My father, growing up, he was in uniform on the weekends.
Yes.
And I just had to follow in his footsteps. My grandfather was also in the military.
Dang.
So, you know, in my world, there was no other option. So that was what I wanted to do.
So, oh man, you're like a real man. I mean, damn, what makes you want to, you're not scared?
No, I
Dang.
wanted to just go in there, and I wanted to, I looked at it as a way to enlighten me into what I needed to learn and what I needed to pursue. And the military is great for that. You know, it's not all combat.
Yeah.
I went in as a military policeman.
What is a military policeman?
So basically, they guard the post, they do law enforcement work on base, and then during times of war, they do a lot of stuff with logistics, routing convoys to and from the battlefield, doing taking care of prisoners.
Really?
Yes. Guarding generals, guarding higher officials. That's what the military police is. And of course, because it is the Army, there will be times when you might end up raking rocks, you know.
Right.
So we nicknamed ourselves, instead of military police, multi-purpose. But
Dang. Did you go to a combat at all or not?
no, thank goodness. I ended up serving my 5 years, not once.
5 years.
Yes. But I did deploy I saw a lot of, we did deploy in Guantanamo when the Cubans and the Haitians were migrating on rafts.
Yeah.
So I assisted with, helping them get situated there. It was Guantanamo as a naval base when I got there, and when we left, it was a base that was changing. The dynamics were changing. It was a holding facility basically for the refugees.
Now, how is it dealing with prisoners?
Well, because of what I did, I worked the road mainly. I didn't do work with prisoners, but we did. Again, we did work with the migrants that were coming and with the refugees, and so we established camps for them, and they're very basic camps, and it wasn't very hospitable.
Yeah.
Basically, razor wire, around the perimeter, and a bunch of tents and cots, and then told them this is where you live until we get you all sorted out.
And how were these people? They were,
Great people.
great people, right?
Awesome. All coming here looking for the American dream.
Yeah.
So it was just a good time to really appreciate what you do have.
Could you talk to them a lot or not?
Yes. Well, I could to the Cubans. I speak Spanish.
Ah.
I ended up being pulled from my unit, and I was attached to basically work with the. They had a radio show there, and so I would listen in on what was being disseminated.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of misinformation
Really?
they were getting. Yeah, Cuba was putting out misinformation, and then people from Florida were putting out misinformation.
Yeah.
And we're on that island in a little strip all to ourselves, and we had our own little radio show. So it was important for us, and that was my job, to listen to all the static noise that was going around and sort it out and see why people were all of a sudden rioting for, on Thursday. It's like, where did that come from? Oh, so-and-so saying that, everyone's going to be liberated on this day, or they're going to, stuff like that. So that was an important job that I had, and I was very proud to do that job.
Wow.
Yeah, I was an E4 at the time, and every morning I would have to go and talk to, the briefings for the commanders, and so I was there talking to the full bird commandant of the Navy, briefing him on what was happening.
Yeah.
It was a interesting time.
And that prepared you for being a police officer.
Oh yes, the military 100% changed my view on where I wanted to go. For sure, I wanted to be a police officer, and more importantly, being in the military, you have to talk to people, and you learn to talk to people from the East Coast, people from the South.
Yeah.
California, it's very diverse.
Right.
But you leave California and you see a lot of what the U.S. has to offer, and it's so different.
So, it's like, it's amazing. You wanted to go into the military and then a police officer, and you go into it, and no pun intended, with a great state of mind, because you have no fear of something happening to you. Where if I were going, we both are. I forgot you got bipolar too. I was gonna say I'm mentally ill, so I'm scared. But you're just built a certain way, maybe the way you were brought up, that you can just go to the military. Now I'm gonna be a police officer, and I know it's hard work, and you worked hard to do it, but it fascinates me how strong your mind is.
It's a mindset that you want to do this. It's if you don't have that drive, you're going to find an excuse not to do it. Going through basic training is very difficult. Going through police academy is very difficult.
Is it?
Yes.
What is police academy like?
It's very much like a basic training, but it's
push-ups and pull-ups and
every morning. Yeah, a lot of running. And then you have to take the classes to become post-certified in California. So you do a lot of classroom work. And then on top of that, you have to learn to do a lot of personal interaction stuff, dealing with how to arrest somebody, how to talk to somebody, how to do a DUI evaluation on somebody. So all that stuff comes into play. And then everything you do gets graded, and you have to pass. There's no, okay, well, you didn't pass this, you're okay. No, you have to pass it.
On everything you have to pass.
You get 3 chances, when I went through. And after 3 chances, if you couldn't get through there, you were done. You packed your bags, and your career was over unless you reapplied and started over again.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you something, and I know you're not political, and I'm not political, but I have to ask you how you feel about defunding the police.
I think that is the worst idea I've ever heard.
Okay.
Reason being is you want well-trained officers out there.
Yes.
You want officers. I'm not saying that officers make a lot of money. They make a decent salary. You don't want to have officers not making enough money where they can't provide their family, and now they're working other jobs and not focusing on what they're supposed to be doing, which is their main job. It's a very difficult job. It's a hard profession for anybody to do, and there are officers that they start within 2 or 3 or 4 years realize this isn't for me. I mean, the demand on
especially now. Can you imagine?
Especially now. Now everything is basically you're being videotaped. We have in our department where I served, we have cameras in the cars. We have mics on our uniforms.
Right.
And it's difficult telling somebody and being polite to somebody who's not being polite to you. Yeah, to maintain that,
I know, man.
it's very difficult.
You got to keep calm. You got to be. You got
You have to, but yet we're, granted we're
human.
officers, but yeah, we still have emotions.
Yes.
And we still have, at some point, limits to where we have to say, okay, we're done playing, sir, and at this point, it
Yes.
becomes
I get you.
a little bit more confrontational.
Now, look, of course, I did a state of mind when I used to do it in the car, on Instagram story, and I did one on defund the police and police and stuff, and there are bad apples, but there's so many great police officers, but the one bad apple can ruin it for a lot of the great police officers. So, and that's the problem I see. But in everything, there's going to be a bad apple, right?
Just in any profession.
Yeah.
That's the case. The only thing with our profession, it's
Life and death?
it's very life and death. And two, an officer out there in Illinois does something, it gets televised across
exactly.
the nation.
Right.
A surgeon does a mishap, and it doesn't get public.
Exactly,
It doesn't
right.
go, worldwide. We mess up. Our mistakes, can actually have big ramifications. It could change the policy of how police work.
Yes,
and
I get you. I get you.
So it's like always you have to be, especially now, have to have high standards.
Yes.
And it's really hard to maintain those high standards.
And you're going to have a
24/7.
lot of police officers not wanting to be police officers and quitting and retiring early, maybe. I don't know, because the way it is right now, I think. That's just my opinion.
From my understanding, recruiting is very difficult right now.
Yeah.
It's very hard to fill in the rank and file that are retiring and leaving. Attrition is killing a lot of departments, not just the department I came from.
Yeah.
A lot of people, just don't see a career as law enforcement as I viewed it, as a place to go in there and better your life and help other people. They look
Yes.
at it as, I'm going to go there and I'm going to be, spit at, yelled at, shot at.
Yeah.
And so they don't see what attracted me to the department.
And how proud are you of your son, Ben?
I'm very proud. He followed pretty much in my footsteps, and he pursued, which was unexpected.
Yeah.
He earlier on, I thought he was going to become a chef.
Oh, that's right.
I was really surprised when he graduated high school at 17 and looked at me and said, "Dad, I want to be a military policeman and I want to go through the military."
Wow.
So my grandfather was in the Army, my dad was in the Army, I served in the Army, and I was like, okay, you're going to apply to the Air Force.
Wow.
I go, you got to change it up. I go, you got to try something different. And luckily, the Air Force was a great avenue for him to pursue what he wanted to pursue.
Yeah. So let's get into how you had bipolar and didn't know it, or knew. I don't know what you tell me what. Because when I first was diagnosed, I was 22, and at 21, I was manic, like there's no tomorrow. They put me in a mental institution, and they still didn't know what was going on. I'm like, please, I gotta know what the hell is it? Why am I tied up to a bed? Why are there only 4 walls around me and I'm tied to this bed? And then I escaped. So it's a story. It's in my book. If you want to read it, New York Times bestseller. Thank you. And then the psychiatrist said I was manic depressive. So take me on your journey, as much as you would like to discuss, and tell me how it all went down.
It's interesting. Going on what I know now. My mother had depression,
Oh.
which I didn't know growing up as a kid. You don't pick up on that. But, as I started my life moving on, I would get into these very quiet modes. I would see myself just very not interacting with my wife, not interacting with my kids as much as I wanted to. And I would just basically, and that was the aspect of depression that would come into to play. And then I would force myself to be out there and be with them. But at the same time, it was a chore to just try to be all that.
You felt heavy?
Yes.
Heavy inside and ugly?
Very much so.
Yeah.
And then through my time in adult life, I basically, it became more and more difficult to deal with. So, and I think one of the points where it became very difficult initially was I was involved in an officer-involved shooting. So at that point, it was a person who was high on marijuana and alcohol. And it went to, being that I tried to subdue him, it went bad for me, and I ended up on the ground.
Ooh.
He was basically on top of me, and he was, landing punches on me. And at that point, I did have to shoot him.
No.
Yeah. And
Wow.
It was very difficult. It was a difficult situation to even think did that just happen? It was I fired my firearm from my back as he was literally just laying punches on me. And when he keeled over, he survived the shooting, even though I think I shot him 5 times. Wow. And then I remember the paramedics rushing in at the time and thinking that I was the one that was shot because of all the blood that was on me. And I kept telling you, I'm fine. And they wouldn't have it. They sat me down and did a pat down on me, trying to look for holes, basically.
There was nothing.
No. But it was just all the blood that had come out. And so you would think, okay, I survived the shooting. I should be okay. I literally found myself in a hole that I've never, so deep I didn't basically want to live at that point.
Yeah, of course.
It was very, I didn't know how to explain it. I tried talking I went to a psychiatrist and I tried talking to them, but they gave me these pills that just basically actually gave me headaches and migraines.
Right.
So there was.
You remember what that pills were?
No, not offhand. And then, unfortunately, the psychiatrist that I was seeing ended up leaving. Like he just left the area and didn't forward my.
Oh my
thing.
goodness.
So I was just like, I guess I'm done with the psychiatrist, so we can move on. But it was just a very, very difficult time at that point.
What happens at the moment that somebody's on top of you, punching you, and you shoot? You're just going off instinct, self-defense, right? But I guess you're telling me that now, but afterwards it has to affect your mind. I've always thought, like, you see movies, you see documentaries on what goes through somebody's mind when they shoot someone. And that's what you're saying right now, right?
Yes, you go and you watch an action film, one shot, the guy goes down.
Yeah.
In my situation, the gentleman rushed at me with a screwdriver.
Ooh.
And I had to discharge a few rounds as he was closing in. And in my head, I'm like, why is he not going down?
Still going.
And then, like I said, I found myself on my back, and we were still, the fight was in his favor. He's on top of me. He's hitting me with all he got. And just realizing that's a survival mode right there.
Is his energy, is that drugs? Because you hear people shoot people and they're still alive and they've been shot 85 times and they're like still moving. because they've been on drugs like cocaine and whatever drugs they do, PCP, all that kind of stuff.
He wasn't on hardcore drugs.
That's amazing.
PCP was just basically anger and
Yeah.
perhaps, adrenaline.
Yeah.
And, on top of the alcohol and the marijuana that he had, just everything.
So Ben, after the psychiatrist, what goes now? Where are you at? Like after that, is it like more depression? Is it it's weighing on you a lot? What are you feeling at that point?
It puts to a point where I didn't really want to just leave the room, and I started, drinking, which is something I didn't really do before.
Yep.
I was, searching for that. It becomes, you go to that as a form of just trying to null.
I know you want to self-medicate. You want to take away that pain with something else, but the drinking's going to make it. Woo.
Yes, it does. It makes it worse. And luckily, I was able, because of I wasn't a drinker beforehand. I was able to kind of ease off of it before it got any worse. But
Right.
it was still enough to alert my wife that something wasn't right. Coming home and seeing me already drinking, was not a when in fact the only time we ever had alcohol was when we ever went out together. So that was a red flag for her to deal with.
So you have a lot of now depression at that time, and I'll ask you this question because I've asked many people, and I've talked about it with my own wife. You probably feel, I would imagine, but maybe not. If it wasn't for your wife, you wouldn't be here.
Actually, if it wasn't for, and this is difficult for me to talk about, because I do love my wife, I love my children, but at that point, there was a point in my life where, I actually got the gun.
Woo!
And I did put it towards my head, and I did push the trigger.
Wow!
And
I got chills, man.
what ended up happening was the bullet didn't cycle right, and it just basically jammed.
So God's on your side, man.
It was, and then, to be honest, it was just one of those things where it's like, oh, guess not today. But I never talked about it with anybody.
Let me tell you something. I'm with you. I didn't take the gun. We're getting into some deep shit here, man. I didn't take the gun, but I was imagining what kind of rope to get. There's a tree, in front of my house. And every morning I would think, because I didn't want to take the gun, it's too messy, even though I'd be dead, but it's just too messy. And I didn't want to take pills because I could live, and then I'm the actor, celebrity who, and it's, so I thought the rope, and every morning I would have that. And you know what made it worse for me? And I guess you were at that point. I just, a lot of times people stop wanting to do that when you think of family and, and you think of all that. But for me, I felt, that's why I was getting close, I was a burden to them. So I was doing them a favor. So that's why it was getting, but then I got help. Whew. Amazing. So then what happened after that? You came to a realization?
Well, after that, I just went back to trying to live my life the way it was, try to pick up where I left off. And that involved getting into all sorts of things. I was in the gym a lot.
Oh,
Worked out a lot. I was hanging out with my friends, after shift, just trying to, I didn't know what was happening, but being home was difficult. I didn't want to be home. So, and then when I was home, at the time, it was just, I wasn't sleeping very well.
That's the killer, ain't it?
Yeah.
The sleep.
So I would work B shift from 2 to 10:30. If I got off at a legitimate time, if there was no late arrests or late crashes to deal with, I would go out with my friends. We'd go out and have drinks. After drinks, so I'd go home. I'd play video games. Halo, love that game.
Halo, right?
But I would go and just play. Go to bed around 3, and then I was up at 6 maybe in the morning. I was, and I.
You can't do the no sleeping thing.
Yeah,
That's when you know you're in a bad place. And how long did that last until you finally went to get help?
I didn't get help.
No?
No. I would just.
How'd you get through it then?
I just kept.
This is fascinating to me, this interview. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would just continue through it, power through it.
What the? Really?
Yes.
And then what? And then when was that? How long ago was that? Last week?
No. Well, this was years ago.
Okay.
And that was just something that, for me, was just something that I couldn't see. I don't know if it was wrong, but it didn't feel wrong to me. It was just, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
To me, no one had sat me down and tried to tell me what's going on. This is wrong. No one saw that. No one came and told me, hey, Ben, you need help.
Really?
In fact, and I said that there were commanders that, when there was a shooting, and I would show up to be supportive, and some unfortunate commanders came up to me and told me, get over whatever you've been through. That's history.
Oh my goodness.
That type of thing.
Because that's that thing, right? That get over it. It's all right. It's just you'll get through it.
Yeah, and so I would just move on, and just whatever emotions I had, whether because when an officer was involved in a shooting, you kind of relive your own thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would respond to some of these shootings to help to be there for them. You hear the radio how things are going bad, and you already know in your heart that it's going to get even worse, just by the voices, by what you're hearing.
Right.
And you're trying to get there. You're rushing, trying to get there, and then, you hear those unfortunate words that come through the air. Shots fired.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you're like, who? Who is it? Is it him? Is it
your
friend?
Yeah. Is it your buddy?
Yeah. So you don't know for a few minutes, and then then you go through. Okay, it's so and so was involved in shooting, and it's he discharged a weapon. All right. So now you just want to get there, and that urgency to be there.
Yeah.
And we would go through these shootings once every year, if not not more.
Oh my goodness.
So dealing with all that was very difficult, and because I was one of the in my office had gone through the shooting earlier on within within current history, a lot of the guys came to me for support, for advice. So,
but you needed your own advice.
That's the thing. I needed help, and I didn't know that.
Wow. Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to offer you something. This is because this has been one of my. I don't know what I expected from you, but what you've just done, especially for police officers out there who need help and whatnot and this and that, and maybe aren't getting the exact help they should be getting. I'm going to say to you that if you have any buddies, because this is what I want State of Mind to be, where it's not just celebrities. I'm cool with talking to celebrities, all good. But this is a spice of life that, I was going to go out and do State of Mind out there and do it in the streets and talk to cops and talk to homeless people. It's kind of my next goal. But this, I'm saying to you, if you want any anybody you know who's a police officer that wants to come in here and just talk, I'm here for them.
Okay.
And I mean that. All right. I think we've covered it. Ben, you should be very proud of what you just did. Because, like I said, you have no idea. There's going to be a cop out there, right? When I put this up, because I'm going to promote the hell out of this. And there's going to be a police officer out there who's been shot, and he's going to watch you talk, and he's going to go out and talk to someone and get help because of what you just did. I'm telling you that.
And I hope that's the case. That's, coming here, I wasn't sure how this was going to go, to be honest. But it wasn't, I guess, until age 50 that I literally got help. And it was, as a seasoned officer, I found myself in a mental facility.
Oh, yeah.
So, the first instinct of that was, I don't belong here. What am I doing here?
Yeah, me too.
And it was like for 3 days I wouldn't leave the room. I was just very rebellious, that I don't need help. I needed help. I needed all the help I could get. But,
what makes you, because I'm the exact opposite. I don't like to feel that way. It hurts. It's painful. I hate it. Get me help. What makes you think you don't need help at that when you were in the hospital, in that mental institution?
I just, based on, it's very bad information on my part, and I'm not going to blame culture or anything. I'm not going to say it's machismo-ness in me, or the drive of being a police officer that, no, we all hurt and we all absorb a lot.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're not the bulletproof shield.
Right.
We're sponges. It comes and we soak that stuff up on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a way to just basically squeeze that out down the road, it becomes heavier and heavier, and it weighs you down more and more. And so if you're not, and it's hard to ask for help as a police officer, maybe as a firefighter, as, someone in the military.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard to go up and say, hey, something's up. I'm not jiving.
Yeah. But Ben, if you didn't ask for help and I didn't ask for help, we wouldn't be here.
No, we wouldn't.
That's the problem. These people need to know. Help, you got to ask for help. It's not weak. It's saving your life.
Unfortunately, I'm going through my career. I used one of the jobs that I told myself I would do as an honor to the jobs was to work these details where we guarded the casket of fallen officers. Sometimes, though, these officers were officers that took their own lives. And and I would sit there in front of the casket and I would look at the families, and I would want to tell myself, hey, don't blame yourselves. There's nothing you could have done at the time because, I knew what they were going through, what he went through before he did what he did.
Of course.
I was like, he got to that point, and because he never had that portion where he was able to release whatever was troubling him, it just got to that point where it took him, it consumed him. And that was unfortunate, but it was just one of those things that I still remember being, standing there in front of the casket, looking at the family, saying, that this could be, this was me, this could have been me.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
All right, Ben. I think we're done, Ben, because this has been a fascinating. I don't know what I keep saying this, but you know, it's true. You just, I was enthralled right here listening to you. And I also feel that you needed to talk. And I loved it. And I appreciate it. And that's it, man. We'll talk. We'll keep talking. 'Cause I want to be able to do what I can for anybody who's had to go through anything like you had to go through and I had to go through. And that's what this is all about.
No, I hope this reaches people and, you know, they take it for what it is. You know,
Yeah.
maybe it'll help them. Maybe it'll get them to think about it. I don't know.
It does, man. It does.
I hope it does.
Yeah.
You know, some good.
And it's not so much. It will because of the way you talked about it. I'm telling you, the way you were just honest and weren't trying to be any way but you. That's why. Another state of mind. See you later.